the photography. It was all him coming to me one day and just saying, hey, he was just doing a shoot with Jeff Katz, and he said, Jeff just told me that they have digital cameras, and he said, have you heard of those? And I'm like, no. And he said, have you ever taken pictures? I said, yes. And he said, well, let's get a digital camera. And he never asked to see my photos.
Up next here on Musicians Reveal, you know him very well, and if you don't, he is an award-winning photographer, art director, worked for 13 plus years for Prince, and of course has been known to work with other great artists, Bon Jovi, Bob Dylan, AC/DC, Duran Duran, and many, many more. He just recently released, in honor of the 10th year anniversary of Prince's passing, Black, White, and Color, an outstanding book, and there was a deluxe set which has 2 books. But we're going to talk to the man himself, Steve Parke. Welcome to Musicians Reveal.
Thank you.
So 10 years, thinking back to, has it passed fast for you since Prince passed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the nature of life. As you get older, everything passes faster, no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm sure that right after that first part of the 10 years, it was not fast. It seemed very sluggish at that point. But yeah, it's hard to believe that that's how long it's been, to be perfectly honest. I mean, part of it is because someone you spent that much time with always has impact on your life in little ways you don't expect. And every once in a while you find yourself, hearing that voice in your head, or something comes up. You're like, oh, that reminds me of the time that I did this, So
Right.
it's interesting. And then of course with this book, kind of bringing back a lot of those memories and talking about them with other people who experienced it too has been an absolute joy for me. And it's really interesting because it brings back little memories you forget. It reminds you of a time and place with somebody that kind of faded into the background, and it gets brought back, and that's nice too. So I've thoroughly enjoyed that whole
Right.
process. Yeah.
Well, the fans definitely are appreciative every time you put out great books, and selling really well, really well. That's for sure, right?
It is, and thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah. Do you still hear the boots walking down the hallway, the click in your dreams? I'm just messing with you.
It's no, it's. I mean, to be fair, after I left, yeah, I'd hear those once in a while. I'd have certainly had some conversations in my dreams with him, and very interesting. They'd pop up here and there, and I know some other people that told me the same thing, and mine weren't. They weren't that thing where you suddenly have that, oh my God, like it's not like the forgetting your locker combination in school kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's more of like someone you miss and wish you could still have conversations with. So you do. I mean, I had a few of those that were shockingly real, and I even had one where it was funny because he was doing a concert. And I was watching that. I was like, oh, that was bizarre,
Right.
but a welcome dream for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you in? When was the last time you were in any kind of contact with Prince?
I think the last time was around, and I always, as soon as I need to know the names of these albums, I forget them. It was the MPLS album, which was inside of a collection.
Oh, Lotus Flower.
Yeah, Lotus
Yeah.
Flower. Yeah.
Right.
So he had contacted me about doing the artwork for that, and I had done one for Minneapolis Sound. That's what it was, and he really liked it. He wanted something very similar to vibe wise to 1999, and I did something that he really liked, and then sort of didn't hear from him for a bit. Then I got contacted from other people in his organization at the time. Were like, hey, he'd like you to come out to LA, and I was right in the middle of another big job, and I'm like, I can't
Right.
come out. And he's like, well, he only wants you for this much time. And I said, look, I told him, I said, let's be honest. It never turns out to be that much time. And they're like, well, yes. And I
Right.
said, I just can't. I can't walk away from this job. And, you do that. And then, of course, and that was one of the things that I had to fight for coming out of working for Prince was work.
Yeah.
because people inherently assumed I was very expensive, and especially locally, in the DC Baltimore area. And it's like, but I still have to pay my bills, right? It's like
Yeah.
I wasn't. I mean, I did okay while I was out there, but I never made the kind of money where you could retire. That
Right.
wasn't my goal.
You should have made
I
a lot
mean,
more.
yeah,
Yeah.
today I look back and go, well, if I was smart, and I probably could have got it if I wanted to. The trouble is when you're doing a job that you love
Hmm.
and that is exciting to you every day, no matter how sometimes punishing it can be, and you recognize that, well, how else could I be doing this? Like, who else would
Yeah.
give an opportunity to some kid who came through to do one thing and then just kept asking more and more and more? And it's hard to value yourself sometimes in that regard. And so even when I asked for a raise, and it was because I got put more on full time, like in other words, I was working there but also working from home. He wanted to be able to have me do work and not have to pay kind of a hourly rate, whatever.
Right.
And I way underbid myself. But I also lived in Baltimore at a time where it was like, I don't know, like the 60s as far as prices were concerned in Baltimore
Right.
compared to other places like
Yeah.
houses. I bought a
Right.
house that was $65,000. I mean, that's
Wow.
crazy. And a
Yeah.
nice one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when it comes to the money stuff, I'm not the smartest sometimes, but I love doing it, and it was hard for me to see a way to ask for more, even though, like I said, I don't think he would have had a problem with it ultimately. Might have given me crap a little bit about it,
Right.
but he ultimately would probably pay. So, anyway.
So that first introduction to Prince, you grew up a Prince fan, obviously, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what was the first foot in the door to meet Prince?
It was Levi,
Okay.
Levi
Levi
Sealy
Season.
Jr.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So back when I was in high school and college, I went to a lot of shows in the area. I made my way, let's say I made my way into those shows with a camera. I did it kind of legitimately because I basically would call and I'd say, I'm working for this newspaper and I'd like to get a photo pass. And they'd say, okay. I didn't let them know that it was a high school newspaper and a college newspaper, but I did in fact work for
Right.
newspaper. So, and the particular show that I went to was a Lionel Richie show. Now, I'd seen Lionel Richie on his first tour. I'd seen Lionel Richie with the Commodores.
Hmm.
So, for that show, I really wasn't going for Lionel Richie. I was going for Sheila E. because she was opening for him.
Right.
And I basically, came in later because I knew that. No, I came in earlier. I'm sorry, early to watch Sheila. That's what it was.
Okay.
I made sure to get there on time, and I didn't even photograph during Sheila because I just wanted to watch the show. And then once Lionel got on stage, I fortunately was able to get backstage because just to the side of the stage because I knew a bunch of the security guys there, and they always thought of me as being a really cool person, and I never caused them any hassles or anything else. And mostly I was a kid who was like, why do people harass the security when they need to get something out of them,
Right.
like access?
Yeah.
So I never did. So I was standing back there, listening to Lionel, and this guy standing next to me, and he looks over at me and he says, "Oh, you're a photographer." I said, "Yeah, I mean, yeah." And he goes, "Oh," and I said, "Well, yes, I like to do photographs, but I'm really an artist." And he said, "Oh, did you draw me something?" And I mean, we probably talked a little more than that to get there, but
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah," and I got a napkin and I got a pen from
Oh, really?
somebody, and I drew this little sketch of Levi
Uh
in the
huh.
dark. I mean, it's practically, there's a little light back there, but not much. And he looked at it and he's like, "Oh, this is really cool." And he actually, one thing I cannot forget in this story is the next day he said, "Why don't you come down and meet Sheila tomorrow?" And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, come down to the hotel tomorrow. We leave at this time. Just be there. You can meet Sheila in the lobby because I don't want you to meet her." I was like, "All right, cool." And so he introduced me to Sheila too, which was really nice. And she was really cool. I remember
Hmm.
one of the funniest things she said to me. We sat there and had this conversation, and I was working at a silkscreen shop at the time, and she was telling me she used to work at a silkscreen shop. So we're just like having that kind of conversation. And she goes,
Right.
"You know what I already like about you?" I said, "What's that?" And she goes, "You've been looking me in the eye the whole time." And I was like,
Wow.
"What do you mean?" She goes, "Most men do this."
Uh,
I was like,
yeah.
"Oh," I said, "Yeah, that's not me."
And
So
at
it
a
was just
young
very
age
funny
too.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was a funny observation on her part. But yeah, so then of course, she actually contacted me to work on a project for her for Warner Brothers and had me working on some artwork. And then at a point, I realized I wasn't hearing from anybody, and I think she wanted something different, but at that point, I think the labels, either labels or Prince, I don't know who it was making different thoughts about it, and that's fine. That happens. But then Levi called me one day, and we had stayed in touch. By the way, he gave me his phone number, and I gave him my phone number, and I try to remind people. I mean, people of a certain age remember that you had to make long distance phone calls to
That's right. Yeah.
actually, contact people on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
And to the point where my parents said, you're going to pay for your own line. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember these days.
yeah, but no, he called me and he goes, "Hey, I got great news." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "I'm going to be in Prince's new band." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, it's really cool." And he goes, "I'm going to take you with me." And in my brain, of course, I'm going like, I'm not a musician. I don't know what he meant was he's going to show Prince my work. And he did. He did. I used to mail him through the mail, postal service,
Wow.
original paintings, like big ones, package them up and send them out to him. And he would show Prince that stuff. And, that led to the first job I did, which was the LoveSexy stage that got used in Glam Slam.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
So
So that all.
that was filmed right at Paisley Park.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they had
Yeah.
a one-to-one scale stage built of what was going to be the tour stage, and so they could rehearse it because obviously that was a very complicated rehearsal. And by
Yeah.
the way, I got to watch that rehearsal every single day, 6 to 8 hours of them running that show. I mean, it was crazy and amazing too because I literally got to sit. I just sat on the stage like to the side and watched the whole
Right.
thing, which was fantastic. But then I'd be at night. I'd be working on the stage itself. As a matter of fact, when I first got out there, Prince was going out of town for 3 days, and I did a sketch for him to approve, which was funny because I didn't bring any tools with me. I found some colored pencils upstairs and a piece of illustration board in the trash, cut a little wonky angle. I still have that, by the way. And I just did the design and showed it to him. He approved it. He left for 3 days, and I stayed up those 3 days with people from the Minneapolis Children's Theater and got a third of it done. So when he came back, I was expecting to hear from him, and I didn't. So that freaked me out. And
Right.
then I said to Levi, "Man, I haven't heard from him." He's like, "No, you haven't heard from him?" I said, "No." He goes, "That's okay. You just need to keep going." And I was like, "Oh, so you hear if there's a problem, not
Yeah.
if you're
And
doing all
you're
right."
allowed to still come in the building.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I didn't know that at the time. That was all new to me.
Right.
So that really launched it all. And from there, he just kind of gave me opportunity after opportunity. And a few times I interjected with the right people that I'd be interested in doing something like a tour shirt for the Lovesexy tour. The one that
Mhm.
had the four pieces of his face on the front was something, like that I had in my brain and hit up the merchandising people that were out there at the time. And they're like, "Sure, draw it up and show them and let's see what happens." And it did. So,
So
it's been.
everything was in the job description, and it kept on building up upon building, and it's just
Yeah.
amazing. And I think it's great that you hear other story. I mean, Sam, your buddy Sam Jennings was on that. He would somehow see people and know they can do more, and if you went ahead and did it, he was right most of the time. Do you
Yeah.
get the same feeling?
Oh, absolutely. He gave you lots of opportunities, um, and I suppose he gave you lots of opportunities to either succeed or fail,
Right.
depending on how you handled it. But yeah, I mean, even with the photography, it was all him coming to me one day and just saying, "Hey, he was just doing a shoot with Jeff Katz, and he said Jeff just told me that they have digital cameras." And he said, "Have you heard of those?" And I'm like, "No." And he said, "Have you ever taken pictures?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, let's get a digital camera." And he never asked to see my photos. He never, none of that stuff. And fortunately for me, I actually had shot a lot,
Right.
and also with a film camera because the early digital cameras didn't have that. Like you couldn't see the image on the back like
Oh,
you
okay.
can today. Yeah, it was like film. You had to get it right, and it had a lot of quirks comparatively even to film. Like your ISO, which is well, ISO is hard to explain, I suppose, in a weird way because there's the technical terms for it. But the bottom line is it was slow in many ways, and part of that was because you could not push your film, as it were, to like higher ISOs, which would allow you, say, to shoot in a concert setting or something like that. It was really for studio. It was also
Mhm.
meant to be used with flashes, and I'd never used any kind of flash. in particular strobe lights, which, you set up on either side. You put modifiers on them, whether it's something just to make the light less harsh, or little things that make it very specific spot type of thing. And so the first shot we took, I had the strobes, and all I had done was like aim in the middle wall and made sure I got a decent exposure. That's all I had done so far. And it was all like here and here. No, none of this, none of this, no, just here and here and here. That was it. And so when I shot it, he looked at it and he goes, "Oh, that's okay." And he goes, "But it looks a little, what did he say?" He said it looked a little dark, but I mean, I could fix that, of course, later. But I think what he meant was it was flat. Like it didn't have, like shading like I have here and then some light on this side. It was all
Right.
very monotone. We actually used some of those though in the Emancipation words and pictures. Some of the
Oh,
little
okay.
tiny shots of him in
Yeah.
his NPG thing, or flat
Right.
face down on the floor. That was
Uh-huh.
all stuff I shot. My first things. I kind of forgot about those until one day I found one of those and was like, all right, yeah, some of my stuff was in here. That's
Yeah.
funny.
I remember having it. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that was it. And then after that, he decided, well, we need to use a 10K movie light because that gives plenty of light, which it's true. It gives a lot of light. It's like having the sun like 10 feet away from you. It's just like crazy.
Wow.
So I had to adapt to that. And so everything we shot was either we shot outdoors sometimes, of course, but also when we shot inside, we used that 10K light for the most part. The one time I got to get creative with the lights was when I shot his piano because he was out of town. So I brought in real lights.
Okay.
And then during the shoot that we did, I don't remember exactly. I think it got used for a magazine, but yeah, that's it. It was when the 1999 was written on his stomach in paint.
Yeah. Right.
The art director, because the magazine paid for this shoot, which is kind of fun. And so they had an art director come in, and he said, is this the way you want to shoot?" And I said, "Not necessarily." I said, "But this is how we shoot." And he said, could I do something?" I said, "Sure." And he went to, I think Target was open at that point. I'm pretty sure. He
Okay.
went to Target and got an interior shower curtain and hung it on something in front of the light to reduce the amount
Oh,
of
okay.
light,
Wow.
and it
Yeah.
made it much softer, which is
Right.
why that particular shoot I have so many good shots from, because the light was really set up properly. And so even in my books, like when you see the whole series, it's a lot of images. I mean, some are just slightly different, but like he just turns his face a little bit, or somebody moves a little bit, or whatever. But yeah, it was not only was it an experiment with a new form of camera that had not really been available easily to the public. It was still a $40,000 camera, I think, at the time. It was also using it improperly and finding a way to make it work, and just kind of shooting on the fly. We did so much of that. I mean, the shoot I referred to with the magazine, that was set up. We set
Okay.
that up because it was for a magazine. But a lot of the shots were very basic, and let's go shoot. Well, we had the whole soundstage, so we kind of had a built-in studio, and I don't think there was always an intention for the photos either. Sometimes he just wanted to shoot, and then if it came out cool, great. And it allowed him to look at it, decide if he wanted to keep it. He could try on different outfits. Like in one night, there's one session that had all different outfits over the shoot, and I think that also let him see, like, okay, is there anything here that I want to do for whatever my next look is, Because I would see some of that stuff come out later as part of his look or style of where he
Okay.
was going. And other times, of course, it was a one-off. So yeah, it was its own adventure and its own knuckle biting scenario, because every time we'd finish, again, I dealt with film, so I was
Right.
good at exposing the stuff. So most of it came out good. But the difference with film was you would send it out. They could tweak it a little bit when they processed it if they knew that there were any problems. But you get it back. You get to look at it first and then show somebody else. There was none of that. I had a laptop. I took the little card out. Well, actually, it was a big card, but the card stuck it in the
Right.
laptop. He's right behind me.
Right.
So anything that failed, he sees. So
Did he ever
that was very nerve wracking.
when you were showing him stuff, did he ever say, "Delete it, I want to see you delete it"?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in the book, if you look at the beginning, there's very few shots from those sessions, and it's because he would just go delete, 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 keep, delete, 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 keep until at a point he would come. I don't even remember how early on it was, but at a point he goes, "Oh, can you get that one photo back from yesterday?" I'm like, "No."
Right.
And as I joke, it's like, it's like, I'm sorry, I can't do that for another 30 years,
Right.
because just the technology wasn't there. But
Yeah.
once he figured that out, he was a little more thoughtful about what he kept and what he deleted, which was great because I think there were a lot of really great shots. And then he'd come back later and look through and go like, oh, I like that one. So pull it and we do something with it or whatever. So, I think once he got used to the idea, it's all in house. He didn't have to send it out to get printed or not printed, but the negatives and the contact sheets. So he had control over it being there. And I think at the beginning it was the way he worked with film. Like he'd see that contact sheet or what have you, and then he would just X through things or whatever.
So, Steve, I have to ask you about the poster right back there. I pulled that out.
Oh,
You were heavily involved in the artwork for the Graffiti Bridge album. Talk about getting involved and constructing that because it's really cool as people can see.
yeah. So that was interesting. So after LoveSexy, they went on tour, obviously, after we did all the videos and I did all the shirts and all this other stuff. But I didn't go on the road because that wasn't like my thing. And I
Hmm.
wasn't asked to go. But then again, what would I have done, right? So, so I was like, well, that could be it. That could be the last thing I do for Prince. That was cool, but I need to start thinking about what I'm going to do after that. So I basically thought I need to create a piece that'll knock the socks off of art directors and show them what I can do with paint and illustration. And so I came up with this idea where I'm like, well, I'm going to put all these textures and cool things in it, but I'm also going to put Prince in it and aim at that direction because then if he sees it, maybe he'll hire me to do something in the future. That was kind of my thought.
Right.
So I just came up with all the ideas and I thought about like, well, what was he into? What hasn't he done? Using parts of, like Paisley Park's window from that round part at the top is in there.
Mm.
So just these concepts that I thought were cool. And so when I finished it, of course, I also sent a little like 4x5 transparency to Levi and he showed it to Prince. And about a week later, Levi called me. He says, he's got that thing on his desk and he looks at it every single day. I was like,
Wow.
what? And I knew they were shooting the film, right? I didn't know there was a film when I started this though. That's the funny part because I don't know that there was one because it was just, after they left. So, and it took a long time to paint. I mean, there's a lot of detail in there and I just took my time with it because I wanted to make sure everything came out great and all that stuff. And, so Prince kept looking at it. And one day I got a call from him. Well, Levi said to me, he says, man, I think he's thinking about making this the album cover. And I was like, oh, okay, that's amazing. But also I'm not going to get my hopes up because
Yeah.
who knows, right? Until it happens, even once I found out it was going to become the album cover, I still was like, when I see it in the store, that's when I'll be excited.
Yeah.
So Prince called me out of the blue and he said, hey, I think we want to make this the album cover, but there were some concerns like, you know, well, for my face to be on the cover, is there a way to flip flop it? I said, yep. And I took a look at it in the mirror to make sure everything looked okay. Because sometimes when you paint, if you don't do that, things can skew a little bit because your eye, it doesn't notice things. Like your brain tends to set things up a way that you're used to seeing it. And sometimes you need to, especially when you're doing work for others, double check it in a mirror, make sure it still looks right and all that kind of stuff. So I did that just to make sure I could say, yes, we can do that. But then he wanted to change the color of the jacket to match the movie. He wanted to put Morris Day in. He wanted to put Ingrid Chavez in. Wanted to change the figure at the bottom, which was actually patterned after my ex-wife.
Okay.
Wanted to look more like Jill Jones. So I had to do all that, which was crazy because I literally had to sand the paint off of the illustration board to get it back to the original and then make it all match, which was crazy. Because again, nowadays you could do that in Photoshop in layers. you
Oh,
know?
okay. Yeah.
So yeah, so that was it. I mean, it was just kind of an idea I had, and it happened to align with a lot of when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, there's stuff like the lightning bolts. I mean, there's a whole big thing with the lightning cracking and all this stuff, and I'm like, how did that how did that end up being like that? Like so and the angels thing, that was just because I thought it'd be fun to do and doing it on a brick wall. I thought it would be kind of cool. And so many things ended up jiving with the movie, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know where they were in the movie process, so I don't know if it was just sheer luck that that
Hmm.
came in like that, or if he saw that and thought, "Ooh, here's some things I want to put in the movie," or how that worked. But that was it. That was how it worked. And again, another one of those like taking the chance, not even thinking about a specific project, but more of a long term possibilities. And then it came to fruition kind of like boom, this very painting with a few
That's right.
minor
Yeah.
changes.
And it
Yeah,
came
so it was
true.
really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Tour
absolutely.
books you were heavily involved with over the years. And tell me about some of your favorite tour books, maybe a couple that you took
Uh,
shots for.
well, I didn't actually. I don't know that any of my shots ended up in tour books that I had anything to do with. I think
Okay.
they might have gotten into some later ones. But my favorite tour books to design, the one that's square, and it has the symbol painted in foil over top of a photo, and then it's
Yeah.
die cut. And
Hmm.
then that one I love doing because I had fun with it. Like I made the collectible cards you could take out. I'm sure nobody did that, but still, I like the idea of it. And with everybody's signatures on it, there was a little flip thing at the bottom, which put prints into animation as you flipped
Hmm.
it.
Right.
The pages all had different languages for. I can't remember what we said on it, but I wanted to make it so that because he's an international person, I thought it was cool for there to be different languages in it, which I actually had to hire a translator out of Columbia, Maryland, to do that for me, so I knew what it actually said the right thing. So that was a lot of fun from that perspective, just because he let me kind of do what I wanted, and that was fun. And people have told me they really like that book, so it's always nice to hear the feedback. My favorite one, though, was the what era was that? Was that gold? It's the one where it says free on the back. So it must have been, yeah. And it
Yeah.
had the band in it and contact sheets and all this. That one was fun because I worked with Michael Van Huffel on it, and we had
Oh,
a
yeah. Good guy.
ball working on it. Part of it was because we were so sleep deprived. just and we had to come up with ideas with next to nothing in the way of resources. I mean, we had the photos of the band and stuff, but even collaging stuff back then was really hard in Photoshop because Photoshop had like 3 layers. So we used a program that put the images into as proxies, and then once you got it to where you wanted it, and we also did this with the Exodus Has Begun album. We used the same program. It made proxies, and then it spit it all out at high resolution, but it took hours to do that. But you could work quickly with the proxies, which is really cool. So Photoshop wasn't even capable of that at the time. So what we were doing, and we were frankly on a serious budget too. We didn't have those big machines like I know some companies like out in California that were doing movie posters were on the cutting edge of all that stuff, but with $1 million equipment, we didn't have any of that. So but we also did things like we hit our names in there or our initials. We would just scan things. Like we made this, he had the free thing. So we had handcuffs that were open. And then
Okay.
we had a bunch of different keys that were kind of different shapes and stuff. And we just made those out of stuff. We would just scan crap and then piece it together and make it look that way. And he even asked us one time, he's like, how do you guys, do this and this? And we're like, we just take I said we just like take pocket lint and scan it, and he thought that was funny but that was close to what we were doing. Frankly,
Right.
we just didn't have the resources. I mean, everything is so easy now. Like you go online and you pull down an archive from Getty of stuff you want, and then you incorporate it in Photoshop and all that. That stuff did not exist like that. There were CDs of stock images, but they were all kind of like milk toasty, and they didn't really have like you didn't have a wide variety. It was very limited. So I try to talk about that for people to know what kind of challenges you're up against relative to today. Because I'll see people who say, "Oh, well, this album cover, I could do this better," and blah blah blah. And look at this. It's like, well, yeah, like, your tools are 100%
Yeah.
different. And also, you know, I've seen some stuff where this one dude redesigns covers, and I think he did Emancipation. And I was looking at it going like, well, for me personally, it was a little boring. It's like, okay, it's a nice design, sure, but does it say anything? Not really. But also this, as a matter of fact, there it is.
Right.
When I look back at that, when you look at what else was happening in the time period, that was very much color schemes that were of the time and things like that. And it's only important because it had to sell in that time. It had to attract people's eye in that time. And it still stood out a little bit, but there were certain aspects that also fit into what was going on visually at the time. So, it's hard to like, I would never look back on like some 70s cover and I might think, well, that's kind of hilarious in retrospect, but I wouldn't think like, oh, I could do that better. It's like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
better is relative. I've got tools that they didn't have back then. I could have taken the same idea and sure, made it a better finished package. But if I only had the tools they had back then, maybe not. I know that
Yeah.
airbrushing and retouching was airbrushing. It wasn't digital. So yeah, it's really interesting to talk to people about process and for them to find out what it was like relative to what they're used to now.
I mean, you've probably heard the craziest stuff from Prince fans over the years. You mentioned the Emancipation. Did you hear the story? People were saying Prince's cologne was on the CDs and people were smelling it. Did you hear that story?
No,
Okay. It's online. People
I did
talking, they were
not.
sniffing the CDs to say, oh, yeah, they sprayed something on it that Prince was wearing.
I don't think
Yeah.
so. I don't think
Yeah.
EMI. Well, let me say this: EMI is the one who did the duplication, and if they did it,
Okay.
that was on them. But
Yeah. Yeah.
there was no standing order for that, as far as I know. So
It came to mind because, I said, yeah, I've been on Prince fan stuff forever, like most of the
oh
people,
sure.
but yeah, that was one of the things. Okay. We
Well,
dispelled
it's
that rumor.
interesting too. That reminds me that I'll hear people talk about stuff sometimes, and I don't try to be a jerk about it, but I do correct things when I hear people say stuff from a time period I was there, and I'm like, that didn't happen, or that's not
Right.
accurate, or whatever. I try to call people out, and it's not like I'm not trying to be, like I said, I'm not trying to be a you know, I don't know, like a jerk about it or anything. I call myself something worse, but it's that I think it's important for things to be accurate if you're going to talk about them. And
Yeah.
there's enough people out there that had those experiences to ask and not make these wild assumptions or make up storylines. And I suppose in the social media world, there's a little bit of that because people get attention, like, oh, something you never knew about so and so. Okay, well, maybe nobody ever knew it because it didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Right.
and as long as there's people around to correct that,
Yeah.
I think it's important to do. And like I said, I'm not trying to be jerky about it. I just don't want to. I don't want things to get out there and then that's the facts that
Right.
didn't actually exist.
Yeah. And snowball
So
into something which is totally false.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Couple things I wanted to ask you. I've heard you talk before. I don't know if you were on the Electric Vibe talking about this, but you mentioned a shot, Prince without makeup, coming down and saying, Steve,
Oh
let's
yeah,
go. I want to shoot, which is
yeah.
kind of different than you would think. He's kind of guarded about his image and stuff. What was that
Hmm.
like? And what do you think you got best out of the shots with him kind of free and carefree?
Well, it surprised me. I mean, he came in and I was like, I noticed something different about him. For one thing, he didn't have a base makeup on. Now, here's the interesting thing about that, and I learned this because I did a lot of retouch for HBO, and specifically there was a comedy. I don't remember the name of the comedy show. Unfortunately, it's not coming to me, but it was mostly black comedians, and they would do composites of all their faces, and I would get them and have to retouch. Sometimes they were super sharp, other times they were kind of blurry, and I had to kind of make everything look right. And the other thing I noticed was that people's skin tones sometimes, especially with black folks' skin, when you photograph it, you'll start to see various color separations. Like you'll see like a green tone here, but then some red tones here and things like that. And again, makeup usually will cover that. But if you're not wearing makeup, when you photograph somebody, and it happens with white people too, like you'll suddenly see like, oh my God, did I get sunburned? No, it's just the way it's showing in the picture. It's just
Right.
the film or the digital's not as bad. Film could pick it up. So my point in saying that is when I saw Prince do that, I was like, I'm curious how this is going to work out because he looked fine. Like he looked fine. His skin tone looked different because he wasn't using a base makeup. But the funny thing was his eyes looked pretty much the same. He looked like he had natural eyeliner, but I would think a lot of it's his lashes were very heavy, so they created that look. He was very stubbly. He had not trimmed his eyebrows.
Right.
And so in answer to the first part about how the experience was, it was really fun because he seemed just very open to whatever,
Right.
shooting that way. Didn't seem concerned about it. When they came out, he was happy with them. I did have to correct the skin tone just a little bit from place to place. But overall, I thought they came out great because they sort of, I don't know, it showed really that he doesn't look that different, you know?
Yeah.
It's just he looks a little rawer, maybe.
Hmm.
And so I really love there's a shot of him where he's kind of got his hands like this and he's looking, I don't remember if he's looking right at the camera or what, but yeah, like this kind of thing. And I love that shot. I mean, I loved, and so I love the stuff that came out of it. It was just a really different vibe. And, for whatever reason, he decided that was the day he wanted to do it and we did it. So,
And
um,
it's there for
yeah,
eternity.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And, like I said, if he didn't like it, would have been gone.
that's
So,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
You had access all over the grounds with Prince's career. I wanted to ask about filming, shooting concerts and backstage, the difference than studio. What was the most challenging
So,
thing?
so I didn't shoot him live like in a show, and I couldn't because the camera wouldn't let me. He had me try that once at like 4 in the morning.
Okay.
he said, we can you come on tour and shoot with me? I said, not with this camera. He said, why not? And I tried to give him the explanation. He didn't want to hear it. And so I'm sure you've heard that before, that he didn't want the technical stuff. He just
Right.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
try it.
I just want the
So
product.
we
Yeah.
went, right. So we went in the NPG room. He'd set up to be performing or rehearsing back there. And there's a microphone stand. And he said, okay, try to take some pictures. And so we're in like the lighting that was in the NPG room. And the microphone is here and he's moving all over, his usual stuff. And I'm click, 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 click. First thing he sees, first picture, he looks at it and he goes, you need to learn to stand still. And now, keep in mind, this is 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm pretty tired.
Yeah.
And I know this wasn't going to work. I
Uh,
knew it. So I said, I looked at it and I was like, so if you look at the microphone stand, it is completely still. So it is not me. The camera cannot keep up with you. It's just not the nature of this camera. And he goes, okay. And I was like, oh. I felt like, woo. But, sometimes you come off hot because you're like, oh my God, dude, I tried to tell you this. And now
yeah.
you're sitting here telling me it's my problem. So, yeah, so unfortunately, I didn't really get to do that. Now, the funny thing is, I did do that and I honestly forgot it. And of course, I never told him, not on purpose. It just, I forgot that I'd done this. It probably wouldn't have been a good thing to tell him. But during the Purple Rain tour back in the 80s, I got my camera into a show and shot
Oh,
pictures. And now I
right.
thought they all were terrible. I honestly at the time because I would see the shot I missed right after, like when I got the slides back, I was like, oh man, I missed this shot. I missed this shot. Not I didn't look at the shots I had really. I was thinking about what I didn't get. Now I'm looking at them going like, oh, I got some cool stuff in here. I mean, it's not like being, down in the pit
Right.
shooting, which is a whole different experience. But for where I shot from, there's some cool stuff in there. So that will make the light of day one day. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a shame. He was great in motion, and I would have
Where did you
loved to
see
have shot
the
that.
Purple Rain tour?
Capitol Center in
Oh,
DC.
okay.
And he played
I
there
saw it at
7 or 8 nights.
yeah, that's right. You had a long stint there. I
Yeah.
saw it Thanksgiving weekend twice in Philly. So yeah, phenomenal. Yeah.
Where do I see the light? Where do I want to shoot and stuff like that? So that was kind of cool. But yeah.
I was at also a Philly concert. It was at the Electric Factory. Prince was there. Larry Graham, I think,
Oh,
joined him up there.
yeah.
He is to do with photographers. He played 2 songs. He stopped. He says, all right, everybody from the newspaper, we're going to stop, bring the band up. You could take your pictures right now and go back and write your story and do that. He stopped it. He took pictures and he went on with the show.
Right. You won't have
Yeah.
to worry about it. I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. But as far as cool things at concerts, when he was in DC during the Jam of the Year tour, I was backstage and hanging out. And I hear him talking to the audience, and he goes, "It's great to be in DC." Blah 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 blah. And he goes, "Matter of fact, we got one of your own here, Steve Park." And I'm just
Oh,
like, "Wait, what? Did he just say my name?" I'm like, "What?" And I was just like, "What? That was really cool." My friends
yeah.
were like, they were in the audience, were just like, "Hey, said your name from the stage." I said, "I believe me, I know." And then the another thing that was really cool when he played Baltimore Arena, two things actually. He met my son which was
Oh,
fun. And my
okay.
son has a backstage pass in his baby carrier,
Wow.
which is really funny. Um, but also, he took me out front before they had opened the doors, and he said, "Oh, come with me." And I was like, "All right, cool." So I walked out with him, and he turned me around and he said, "Look at that." And he's pointed at the stage. He goes, "That's all you," because he gave me the opportunity to design that stage. And
Yeah.
I kind of even forgot about that, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, you do something, it's
Right.
done, you move on to the next thing.
Right.
But the fact that he took me out there to show me and acknowledge it was awesome. And the funny thing is, we're just standing there looking, and I'm like, wow, this is so, what a cool moment. Suddenly they let the doors open and people were starting to come in, which
Yeah.
was fine. But then all of a sudden they're going, "Oh my God, it's Prince." And Prince is like, "Oh, let's go." And he's like
Yeah.
running, and I'm like keeping up with him to get backstage. So those were kind of the fun things for me at concert. Oh, another one that was really cool at the Mill City Music Festival.
Hmm.
I'm off the side of the stage hanging out with Prince and Maite and Larry Graham. No, not Larry Graham. I'm sorry. Maceo Parker. And Prince gets ready to go on stage, and he's been over there stretching and kind of doing high kicks and all this stuff to get ready. And he goes on stage, and the crowd goes wild, blah blah blah. He's launching into the first song. Maybe like 3 to 4 minutes in, Maceo turns right to me and he goes, "You know what? Your boss, that guy's the greatest I've ever heard." And I was like,
Wow.
wow, wow. Considering all the
Yeah.
people he's worked with,
Yeah.
that's a hell of a compliment, so little things like that, are just super cool, you know.
Yeah. You've, I guess that's this way Prince complimented you by showing you that, you know,
Yeah,
those
yeah,
moments, they said, did he ever thank you? Did he ever apologize? But that's a human side that you experienced because he appreciated you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel
I
like I
got,
was lucky that I wasn't a musician, frankly. That's that's part
yeah.
of it. Because and I only say that because I know, I would hear from some of the people where, something like you'd have a day where you're working on something or, it's not going the way you want or whatever. And then he'd be like, "Do you need me to play that?" And of course that puts you in that like, "Oh my God, no,
Uh,
I'll get it," kind of
yeah.
attitude. And with me, I knew craft wise, I knew things he didn't know. I mean, he had ideas, but he didn't know how to do them. So he relied on me to be that person, but he also sometimes relied on me for my opinion on stuff, which was, I took that for granted at the time. But later on, when people asked me, like, "Well, did you have input on the photos?" It's like, yeah, I did actually. I mean, he would come with basically what he wanted to do, but once we got past the point of kind of getting what he was looking for, we kept shooting. I'd say, I could say like, "Hey, turn to the right, lift your chin a little bit," things like that, or have conversations during it about, the look of it or whatever. And so, again, in the moment, you kind of do what you do. You're not thinking long term like, "Oh, I need to remember this."
Yeah. Yeah.
So one day I can tell people, it's just the way it was.